Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Keeping It Real with J2. I'm Jenny, your Get Stuff Done coach, PG version in case little ears are nearby. And joining me as always is my business bestie and resident results Sherpa, Jenny. This week, we're talking about a place we all know way too well, the land of someday. You know the one. Someday I'll finally launch that program. Someday I'll have time to focus on my business. Or my personal favorite, next year, everything will be different. For years, we've lived there, trying to do it all, following everyone else's blueprint, thinking more effort was the answer. But honestly, we were just stuck in traffic, running low on gas and no map in sight. Then one day we finally pulled over and realized we didn't need more motivation. We needed direction, not the printed on a map kind, the kind that help you spot the next landmark and you know you're headed the right way. This is exactly what weekly progress markers are, your GPS out of someday.
Exactly, because big goals are like cross country trips. We love ourselves a big metaphor. You can't just toss everything in the car and start driving. Well, you could, but that's a
Yeah.
disaster waiting to happen. You've got to pick
Yeah.
your destination, plan your route, and know where the next stop actually is. And inside Mastery Circle, we teach our clients to do just that. So, step one is always define your 12-week focus goal. That is the destination in this proverbial road trip. Step two is run all the possible routes, otherwise known as actions, through the EARN framework. What's essential? What's aligned? What reduces friction and what creates the noticeable impact. And step three, hit the on ramp, get moving. And those on ramps are your progress markers.
Yeah, it's your weekly checkpoint. Think of it as like a mini finish line that you define for yourself week after week after week. Because here's the truth, without direction, you'll never reach your destination. The scenery might change, but you'll still be parked in someday. You don't need to arrive this week, you just need to pass the next marker. Something specific, measurable, and most importantly, 100% within your control.
Mm.
That's how we finally ditched someday. We stopped trying to teleport to the finish line and started tracking our progress one week at a time.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today is how to set that weekly progress marker, check your progress and adjust the route without burning out or losing momentum because the road to your goal shouldn't feel like a grind. It should feel like a trip worth taking. So buckle up, friends. We're hitting the road.
So, Jenny already mentioned this a little bit in the intro, but here's a quick refresher on how we set goals in Mastery Circle. So, you have this really big vision, this big audacious goal, right? Start your own business or write a book or whatever that big vision is. And then in episode one, and we'll link that in the show notes, we did a deep dive on our focus goals, which is a 12-week focus time period, right? So we got this big goal. We're going to break it into 12 weeks. Then we're going to break it into milestones, which is a 4-week focus or a month focus. And today we're talking through the weekly progress markers. So think of it like a funnel. So your vision is the top of the funnel, and then you start narrowing it down from someday to today. And this is how we turn ambiguous goals into specific commitments. Instead of, I want to write a book, I want to write page one this week, or,
Mm,
something like that.
yeah, because I think we all have those big, hairy, audacious goals that we
Mhm.
want. The business that is humming and serving people and having an impact, and you're able to pay the bills and then some. But getting down to what am I specifically doing this week to move me towards that goal is the key. There are 3 guidelines for setting a weekly progress marker. The first is it needs to be specific and measurable. And before you think we're headed down that SMART goal path, no. This is simply saying you can clearly say it's done or not done or something in the middle of that. And so
Right.
an example of a vague progress marker would be make progress on my website or work on my website. A specific progress marker would be write copy for the services pages and send to my business bestie for review.
Yeah. Clear, specific, done or not done. Love it.
Absolutely. And the second guideline is it needs to be 100% within your control. You're going to focus on an action, not an outcome. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to run it through the filter of, is this something that I am doing? And so a vague version of the progress marker that is not in your control is grow my audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't talk about anything that you're actually doing. You're talking about the outcome of what you want. The progress marker version is send 3 personalized DMs to people I'd love to collaborate with. You
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
actually talking about actions that you can see.
Yes. And then the third guideline is it needs to be achievable within a week. Let me say that again. It needs to be achievable within a week. So it's going to match what's going on in life and your capacity of all the other priorities that you have on your plate. Jenny had a great example, send 3 personalized DMs. That's a great start. Don't think that you're going to send 10 DMs a day. What if you just said, I'm going to start small, and if I have more time, I do more? You want wins. You want to make sure that you're winning through this process. So start very, very small. And then over time, these small, clear wins compound, which brings your confidence up. You start believing in yourself again. There's so much good that happens with starting small and just compounding that week over week over week.
That is what a progress marker is all about, compounding those wins over time. And it's not something that we just made up, there's actual science. We gave you the how to set a solid progress marker, but why it actually works is there's behavioral research that has identified that a specific time bounded commitment increases our follow through. I think the number was like 60% or something more likely to
Wow.
complete something if you have
Mm.
a specific and time bound commitment. And this is what is called implementation intentions. So planning on a specific, if I do this in this time frame, it bridges that intention to action. The other piece is motivation science. Small wins create that dopamine hit that reinforce the momentum. So it's
Mhm.
feeling good when we get that small win. And in a Harvard Business Review article that I found, the authors called this out specifically as the single most important driver of motivation is making progress, even if it's small. And that's the weekly marker.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, haven't you ever had a to-do list where you're just crossing everything off? It's like, man, I'm killing it today.
Mhm.
So this makes total sense. And I think we can all relate to having experienced that. But most entrepreneurs approach goals like a checklist, like I just said, or project plans. And when life happens or things don't go to plan, we lose momentum or stop altogether. It's about seeing your actions as inputs in a feedback system rather than as one off tasks that either succeed or fail. So, progress markers create a built in learning cycle. So, I'm going to set a progress marker. I'm going to act on it. I'm going to do the action. I'm going to reflect, did it work? Did it not work? So in our earlier example, did my 3 DMs actually help build my community? If it didn't, then adjust, of course, over time. If I commit to this action for 4 weeks, am I getting the outcome?
Yeah, I think in your example, it's not about the outcome, the result necessarily in this learning cycle. It's, hey, was I able to write those 3 DMs in the time I set aside? What were the mental obstacles I had to overcome to even sit down and push send on the DMs I wrote?
Right.
So it's in that reflection piece of
Mhm.
it where you start to pull at the threads of what's slowing you down, what's stopping you, what's getting in the way. And I know, like, you and I both are working through our current focus goals and have found that there have been a lot of weeks where we are like, the way that I'm approaching this goal, taking the action, is not working for me. So, for example, my goal is creating a repeatable routine for nurturing relationships. And
Right.
honestly, I'm like on my fifth version of what that kind of weekly plan of action might look like. And
It's okay.
it's okay, right? Because
Yeah.
we start our goal with the best thought around how it's going to work,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
and the progress marker chunks it down for us and invites us to say, hmm, is this actually working for me? How can I tweak this? What went well? What was easy? What did I love doing? And it's in contrast to that idea of I've got this step by step plan for achieving my goal. This one is living and breathing and has growth built right in.
Yeah, and how do you know when you're working on
Mhm.
something you've never done before? How do you know the first draft is the final edition until you go out and try it? Because what I started with at the beginning of this focus goal is nothing that I'm doing now. It's evolved exactly like you said. And I think that's key here because when you're setting these progress markers, you're seeing what works, what feels good. It's not a pass or fail. It's did I do it? Did I not do it? And then adjust.
Yeah.
That is all, leave the drama and everything else behind. We're just trying to inch ourselves closer and closer to that end goal.
Yeah. It's the mindset of the experiment.
Yes.
It's releasing the attachment that I know how, or I should know how to
Yeah,
get from
it's that
point A to
should.
point B, right?
Yeah. And when you're shoulding yourself right there, that's a sign, okay, something needs to shift.
Yeah. The other cool thing is that in this process, you're getting data,
Mm.
feedback, information about how you work best. And that's invaluable because it applies not just to the specific goal or project that you're working on, it applies to all areas of your business and life. One of the things that I think gets missed in running our business and what's out there as far as follow this 3-step plan is, are you leaning into your natural strengths and talents? And this process gets you away from following like this formula, whether you created it or someone else did, and really examining the pieces of what works for you and fine tuning it.
It's hard not to use a trip analogy because it seems like when we're talking goals, we're always talking about trips, but we can get to the same destination in very different ways.
Mm,
Because there's a lot of highways, there's a lot of roads, there's back roads, there's airplane, there's train, there's bus. If you think about getting to the same destination, I can do it a million different ways. And that's our biggest message in Mastery Circle. Yes, it may be this 1, 2, 3 step process, but it doesn't need to be the way that works for me. Because if I gave you my process, you'd be like, oh, girl, no. Mm-mm.
mm-mm.
I need to do it my way. And that's the beauty of Mastery Circle. We're all going to the same destination, but how we get there lines up with us.
Mm.
And it's the things we enjoy doing and the way we like doing it, not by somebody's blueprint that worked for them because it was theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gold. That is 100% the truth. And it reminds me of back in the day, I'm dating myself, when we used to get on MapQuest to get driving
Oh, yeah, yeah.
directions. And it would get
Yes.
you a lot of times to the general vicinity,
Right.
but missing some critical
Yeah.
details that got you to the
Yes.
actual destination that you wanted
Hmm.
to. And I think that is true. There are a lot of great general
Yeah.
strategies and how-tos to get you in the vicinity of where you want to go, but the
Right.
magic happens in the refining and tweaking it for you.
For you. Yes, for you. And this right here is how 12 weeks later, you're not just moving closer to your goal, to this big, audacious dream that you've wanted to accomplish forever. But now you have data that
Mm.
goes right along with it. So you're building systems that are sustainable to you. And it's to you, nobody else. Mastery Circle is about a framework. It's like have a 12-week goal, break it down into a milestone, and then set your weekly progress marker. How you get there is completely up to you.
Yeah. To bring us
So I
back
think we
to
need, yeah, I think we need to talk about some, well, we can get on a tangent, can't we? So, or I can.
well, we're
So kind of
passionate about it. So,
yes, it is because we've tried following other formulas and it didn't work. And so that's our key message. You got to make it yours. So we're going to talk about some common mistakes and, some real talk. That's what we're all about. There is a catch. If your markers aren't set up well, the data gets fuzzy. So, Jenny,
yeah,
take it over.
exactly. There are a few what I'll call classic progress marker mistakes that every entrepreneur makes at some point, us included. We're not
Yeah.
immune. The good news is that once you can spot them, obviously you can fix them fast. So the first one is overcommitting. We just try to do too much in a week and end up discouraged. Human beings are terrible at estimating the amount of time it takes to do something, especially if you've never done it before. But how many of us think that folding a load of laundry is a 20-minute task when it probably is 5 minutes or less?
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
that's a
that
fun experiment. Time yourself because what your brain says is totally different. Yes.
so unlike the load of laundry where it's a much shorter task than we think it is, in our work tasks, for some reason, we always overestimate how fast we're going to get something done. So I always like to say, rule of thumb is double the amount of time you think it's going to take. And if you end up with extra leftover time, now you have some great data that says, okay, this doesn't take that amount of time. The other piece on the overcommitting when you're setting your progress marker, and I think it's super timely right now, we're headed into the holiday season, is actually look at your calendar and block the time to work on the action. Think about the week of Thanksgiving. You're not working 5 days that week, more than likely. And so, why are you thinking that you can treat that week the same as any other week? Be realistic, put that time on the calendar. What's
Yeah.
the next mistake?
Yeah. So picking out outcomes, not actions. So we're back on this 100% control. If your weekly marker is to land a client, unless you stand over them and hit buy on their computer, guys, it's not happening. What's in your control is reaching out to people about your offer. Land a client depends on someone saying yes. That is not in your control. The second one, you have 100% control of reaching out to 5 people.
Yeah, and I think the thing that pops in my mind is if you're not sure, am I picking an outcome or an action? If you sit down to work on your progress marker action that week and you have no idea what to do, then you're probably picking an outcome.
Yeah, that's not in your control. And another thing is if it's part of where you're headed, getting more clients or building your business, that's another indication it's a result, not an action. What action can you take that's 100%? You may not want to do it, but it's 100% in your control.
Yeah, and the next mistake, I am guilty of this
Mhm.
often, especially at the beginning of a new goal, being vague to stay comfortable. So, work on content feels safe, but it doesn't create any accountability. It again, it's too vague. And so the first piece of that is just acknowledge that if you're feeling uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
We do that a lot in the mastery circle is we call out, I'm feeling a lot of discomfort about this particular activity. And it releases that pressure valve and it lets other people know that, hey, I'm a real person and not everything is firing on all cylinders all the time. And then the second piece around tackling this mistake is pick something that you can clearly say done or not done. So, again, picking that thing in your control that is bite sized. And so, drafting the intro paragraph for my about page or outlining 3 LinkedIn posts would be a huge improvement from work on content.
Yes, for sure. And then the final mistake that we all make, and until we started slowing down, because, we're just such in get things done, is ignoring any feedback you get from your progress marker. Because if you don't hit your marker, it's not failure, it's data. So ask yourself, what got in the way? Was it too big? Was it too small? You need to get curious if you set a progress marker and the result that you were anticipating by the weekly finish line isn't what you receive. This is time to tweak and make some pivots because reflection is what makes the next week smarter, not harder, because we're learning, we're doing new things. We don't know how to do it. We're testing what people have told us to do and we're making it our own. Okay, so I think we've covered this very well. We're very passionate about our weekly progress markers. So here's your sign to stop waiting for the perfect time to take the trip because, newsflash, there's no magical GPS rerouting that suddenly clears all the traffic. Progress happens in motion. You don't need to redraw the whole map. You just need to know the next stop. That's why your weekly progress marker gives you one clear, doable direction forward. If you've been circling that same block, wondering why you're not there yet, this is your invitation to get back on the road. This time, do it with intention. And if you want to pick crew to keep you fueled up along the way, join us for our free Monday Power Hour. It's your weekly accountability stop where we fill the tank, check the route, and get you rolling again. You'll find the link in the show notes because results don't happen by accident, they happen by design.
Exactly. Your someday dreams deserve more than good intentions and a half-charged GPS. Progress isn't about speed, it's about direction. And when you know your next marker, you can handle the detours, the flat tires, and the messy middle without losing your way. So we'll see you next Monday, map in hand, coffee in the cup holder, ready to take the next mile together. And next week, we're lighting it up with episode number 5,
Yeah.
Burn the Busy Badge, Why Busy Does Not Equal Productive and What to Do Instead. Because doing more doesn't always mean moving forward. And until then, keep driving towards done because this is where everything changes if you let it. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.